I remember some 3 4 years ago when I see used to hammer on the word, authenticity as it pertains to building your personal brand. At the time, I was trying to, build my personal brand, create content, right, especially on Instagram, and I needed to create from a point of genuineness, from a point of deep expertise, and I guess what came to my head in this period was like, authenticity, and I probably must have even put it in one of the ebooks that I wrote back then. But these days I laugh because, if anything, I have been so opposite of that, unauthentic in recent times, not even in recent times, but the most part of my life. So today I want to discuss one of the most used buzzwords in the personal branding space: authenticity. But before I dive deep into that, let us establish some point of reference. Now, a quick stroll on to Merriam-Webster dictionary and just a quick search on the word authentic or authenticity. One of the definitions that they said here is conforming to an original so as to reproduce essential features. There's another definition that also says not false or imitation, real, actual. And one definition here, which I believe, which is going to be the pillar of this conversation, is true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. Now let's face it, true to one's own personality, character, and spirit. Now, the problem that we have these days is that people don't know their character. You have to know the original for you to make a fake. You have to have a point of reference for you to compare things with. When it comes to this authenticity, people don't realize that there needs to be something to measure something against. For example, if you say you're authentic, then it means that you have to know your true authentic self. You have to know the original self, your own character. To a good assessment of your own character, you have to know it, so that every of your actions and behavior is measured against that thing, which is your original self. What we find these days is actually the opposite of the word authenticity. We can probably relate with this for some of our parents who will tell you, go and do this thing or don't do this thing because people will talk. Not necessarily because they don't like it or maybe they even do sometimes. Sometimes they just don't want you to do it, or they want you to do it so that people will not talk, or so that people will talk. And judging from that, we can arrive at this conclusion that many people's actions or inactions are influenced by what people will say about them. Many people are building not from a place of deep authenticity, but from a place of conformity to the standard that has been set by others out there. So we are more like living up to a standard that someone has set, not necessarily living up to our own standard. Because this is it, many people don't know their standard. So instead of self-inspection, instead of introspection and clarity about oneself, we are instead adopting a standard that has been probably tested or by someone who has probably found his or her own clarity. This is something that I've been thinking for a while now, and in fact it has made me edit out that word in most of my content. I know what it means to be authentic. I know what it means to be original, to stay true to your personality or your character. But what I find with myself is that it has not been true for the most part of my life. There have been situations where I conformed. There have been situations where I did some certain things because I don't want people to talk. And there are some situations where I actually stayed true to character. But would I say I'm authentic? I don't think so. Because I think if I say I'm authentic, then it means that at least 95% of the time, I am truly staying true to my character. But the opposite is actually the case. Hey, this is what I'm driving at. Being authentic takes a lot. It takes a lot of introspection. It takes being really stern and really harsh with oneself. you need to really understand you at your very core. You need to really be grounded on some things, on some philosophies and some values, and you really need to be self-aware for the most part of your life to be able to say that you are really authentic. Now, I'm not trying to set the new standard for authenticity, but I think if we're really going to be true with ourselves, not many people are. But does that mean we do not have the capacity to be authentic? I don't think so. I think we all can come to a level where we can really be authentic with ourselves, but it takes a lot of work, and sometimes it's best done not by yourself, because sometimes we can be dishonest with ourselves. I think it is best done with someone, with a third person, with a third party. That way you can truly understand how someone sees you, and you'll be able to compare with how you see yourself and come to a balance. I guess another thought or question that most people would have is, do we need to go full cloud authentic before we can build a personal brand? No. I think for the most part, I've built my brand based on what I want people to say about me, what I don't want people to say, and what I want to say that I really do not care what people say. So it has been a mix of these three, but you don't necessarily need to go full cloud authentic, because if you're talking about going full cloud authentic in this era of social media platform, then it means that every time you're sleeping, you're recording a content for your followers, because you want to be authentic, so you want to show them what's going on, right? Every time you are sad, every time you're crying, every time you receive the bad news, then you want to pull up a video and do a content, right? Of course, you have people doing them, but then you can still see that as still being forced or, not necessary, right? Every time you go to the toilet, you make a content, just to be authentic. Now, you can't believe, you cannot be fully authentic, and especially in this time and era where it's easy to, share and post all the things that you're going through in life, everything that you're doing in life. It's easy for you to, push that all on social media, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is find alignment. What do I represent? What do these people that I'm trying to reach, what do they represent? Then align with what they represent, and work your way back, create content based on the alignment, create messages based on the alignment, and before you know it, that tribe will gravitate towards you. That's how it works. So you don't really need to go full cloud authentic before you build a personal brand. So here's my 2 cents on being authentic or not being authentic. I think we truly cannot be 100% authentic all the time, but we should acknowledge that and not say that, oh, I'm authentic, I do this in an authentic way all the time. No, you truly cannot be. That's how we are built. We are wired to think about, sometimes we are wired to think about what other people think. You may not actively think about them, but we are wired to, think about what they think sometimes. And we just need to actively work against that. And as much as possible, see it as a smoke that just leaves. And see every good comment or every bad comment as people's opinion that really should not matter to your life. I think it makes sense to somebody out there that you don't necessarily have to be authentic for the most part, because we are flawed and we truly cannot be authentic for the most part of our life. And to also acknowledge that you can be if you truly strive to be. But whichever the case that you choose, whichever balance that you choose to go with, you can build a personal brand. You can build one that thrives and one that connects with people. You can build it without not showing all your life on social media. Alright, that's it. Don't forget to tap the subscribe button. I am going to see you in the next video.